Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about 13 reasons why and how it can be seen as maybe problematic or beneficial to the topic of mental health. Mental health is something that I talk about very openly online and throughout my peers and with my family. However, it's not really seen as a problematic topic to talk about. It's often seen as a positive thing. However, when 13 Reasons Why was made last year and aired last year, there was a lot of talk around the topic of maybe glorifying suicide and not addressing those real issues in an appropriate manner. I actually loved the first series and the second series of 13 Reasons Why. I thought they opened up a lot of discussion, a lot of debate. It was difficult to watch, which I thought was good because suicide isn't glamorous, it isn't nice, it's not easy, and self-harm in general, mental health, mental illness, anything in general is not easy. And so I liked the fact that they did not sugarcoat it. It was very raw, it was very graphic, and I think that it was probably the best thing for them to do. I've written down a few notes. I kind of wanted to get my thoughts down and try to kind of structure this video rather than blurt out everything. I've taken into consideration a lot of different opinions, I've looked at different sources, I've watched the Behind the Reasons on Netflix, which is basically behind the scenes of how they compiled all the stories and why they shot scenes in a certain way. I highly recommend that you go and watch that, especially if you're a little bit kind of on the fence with the whole controversy around the series, because it does kind of make you understand why they did certain things and the way they went about that. So one thing that I picked up in that Behind the Reasons episode was that they said not portraying it doesn't make it go away. And I think that's a key thing to take away from this. A lot of people complained about several scenes that were shown in the first and the second series, and they said that they shouldn't have been shown. They should have skipped it, they should have scrapped it. I don't agree with that. They should be shown. It is raw, it's graphic, and there's plenty of trigger warnings out there. I do agree there could have been more in the first series, but they learnt from that. They've included a lot more in the second one. I agree in the last episode they probably could have done maybe like a timestamp to show where the most graphic scene was, but they had trigger warnings there, and it is rated 18, it's going to be gory. There's plenty out there. If you do your research, you know that it's not going to be an easy watch. They should show it. They should portray what is going on in the real world, and not portraying it doesn't make it go away. You have to show it. If you don't show it, people aren't going to listen, they're not going to watch, they're not going to have an opinion. They want people to have an opinion. That's another thing that they said. They said that they made this to enable people to have an opinion on it. Not everyone is going to have the same opinion. They know that not everyone is going to agree with the things that they've included. That is why they made it. It triggers that discussion. It encourages that discussion. It encourages people to debate about it and to talk about it. And yes, that doesn't cure things, but it is that initial kind of starting point at encouraging people to talk about their problems and to get help. So one thing I want to talk about in particular is a lot of people addressed that scene. I might give spoilers, I don't know, but there's a scene at the end in the last episode that is very, very disturbing to watch. And personally, I felt that I want to say outcry on social media, but I don't know if that's the right way to say it. The opinions on social media were a lot more triggering for me than the actual scene itself. And I don't know if that's because I'm very desensitized or because, I don't know, I'm just very open-minded and I know that this stuff happens. I read Katie Piper's book last year on holiday, and the way that she describes her rape scene is 100 times more graphic than what I watched in that episode. And that just proves that it happens. It's happening right now, and they need to show it. And if you don't want to watch it, you can skip. And they said in the Behind the Reasons, they said it's there to make you feel uncomfortable. You are putting yourselves in that person's shoes. You are feeling uncomfortable. You feel physically sick. It's there to make you feel like that, and that is what they focused on. They focused on making their audience feel uncomfortable. And that sounds so bizarre because obviously they want to entertain people, but they want to make their audience feel uncomfortable and feel like they can't watch it, because that is how it feels. It feels horrible to watch. And that is why, you know, it's not a nice topic and it should be horrible to watch. See, I think a lot of people had that kind of discussion around that scene and how it's very problematic and not needed, but I think it was needed. I think that people need to be made aware of the situations, and in the Behind the Reasons episode they showed that they used real life examples, they used real life case studies, they spoke to people who had gone through it and they were guided through them. They had professionals there to guide them. They couldn't have physically done anything more to ensure that the story was portrayed in the right way. And I think if they didn't show it and if they just brushed it under the mat, no one would be talking about it as much. They need that shock factor. And the thing that I want to make a point of is that this is not an educational program. It's not a documentary. It's not made to teach people. Obviously it is going to teach people, but it's not there to educate. It's an entertainment. As entertaining as that topic can be, obviously, but it is there to entertain. It's a Netflix program. It's to entertain. It's not to educate. And if you want more education, there are better sources out there. And I had this kind of discussion on Twitter with people, and some people have said, you know, people need to remember that if it wasn't dramatic and it didn't have that shock factor, then it just wouldn't be as successful. It wouldn't trigger that discussion. And it's kind of making the right decision as to whether you can watch it or not, and whether you know your limits. And if you feel you are not in the right place to watch it, just don't watch it. It's as simple as that. And yes, it's very easy to kind of get caught up in the storyline and want to know what happens, but if you feel that you are not in the right place mentally, don't watch it. No one is forcing you to watch it. And I think that's another thing that I want to make people aware of, is that these people that have made this program have not forced you to sit there and watch it. You can have your opinion on it. I can have my opinion on it. I'm not going to dismiss anyone's opinion. You don't have to watch it. And I think that's very important. Some people were saying that it glorifies suicide and glorifies rape and glorifies all the issues that they raised in the series. However, I mean, I can understand that to a certain extent. I can understand the tapes being portrayed in a way where it can kind of get back at people, and she only did it to kind of make people feel bad, which can be argued. Yes, I understand the argument. However, it's a different way of kind of showing how people feel leading up to suicide. And I don't know, there's a lot you can get from hearing the person speak and how they feel than just letters on a piece of paper, or I don't know, it's a lot more kind of emotive. You can connect a lot more, and you do see kind of Hannah's journey throughout the first series as her being the victim, her being the innocent one, and then in the second series you see another side of the story, and that's kind of what they're focusing on. They're showing that there is more to one side of the story, and it's not simply black and white. There's loads of different reasons as to why things might have happened the way that they've happened, and it's not a simple line. It is, you know, things might have happened there, they've gone off there, other stuff's happened, everything kind of comes into conjunction and has multiple effects on several individuals or one individual. People have also said on Twitter that they could have got the message across by not showing the graphic things. Yes, they could have, but like I've said before, they made it to make people feel uncomfortable and to be able to put themselves in that situation where they feel uncomfortable and feel that they are in that horrible situation. And it's not supposed to be an easy watch, because it's not an easy topic to talk about, and I myself have struggled with some of the topics that have been brought up in the series. I know other people who have, and it's one example of a suicide, it's one example of a rape, it's one example of bullying, it's one example of sexual assault, it's one example of all those different topics, of drug abuse, of homelessness. It's one example, and they can't portray everyone's story and everyone's feelings and emotions. They can only portray one example, and if it's encouraging people to talk about that, and if it's shocking people, they're doing the right thing, because it should shock people. It should shock people that these things happen. The last graphic scene, I should say, in the last episode of the second series shocked people. That's what they needed to do. They need to shock people. They need to show that it does happen. A lot of people dismissed that and they said, no, it doesn't happen. It happens. Probably every single day, every single minute of the day, it happens. And the fact that it shocks you means that it's done the right thing, because it's shown that you weren't aware of that, and now you are. You are aware that these things happen. Also, like the school shooting at the end, I say school shooting, it didn't happen, but the attempted school shooting, that's a very relevant topic at the moment, especially in America, and it shows how different things can kind of lead up to this massive thing, and you might not realise that that person's suffering until that final thing, and it can kind of show that there's a lot that goes on behind closed doors that people are maybe not aware of. It's showing that not everyone is okay, and everyone does struggle, and just because they might not show it on the outside, it doesn't mean they're not struggling on the inside. So a lot of people saying that scene was unnecessary. However, we don't know if that's going to lead into the next series. If there is a next series, we don't know where they're going to take that storyline. So it did seem kind of like random, I guess, at the end, but it shows that we weren't aware that that is what he was essentially plotting throughout the whole series, and you never know what's going on in someone's mind, in someone's heart, in someone's life. You just don't know, and that's kind of signifying that, I guess. I don't know, that's what I got from it. So a lot of things were spoken about, a lot of debates were had on social media about the different topics that they included in this series, and the main talk was about the topic of that scene, I'm calling it, so the one in the bathroom. And rightly so, it shocked a lot of people, it's very difficult to watch, but it happens and they needed to show it. And I think what we also need to talk about is other things that have happened in the series that people have kind of brushed past. The fact that Bryce only got 3 months probation for several rapes, that is something that we should be talking about. People were shocked at that and people were angry at the writers for only giving him 3 months, but that is realistic, unfortunately. Sometimes it's not even 3 months, sometimes it's a week, or like a community service or something like that is fine. I don't know the right sentences, but sometimes it's even less than that, and that's what people should be shocked about. That is what people should be discussing. We should be discussing the amount of women that stood up at the end in that courtroom and said that they have been a victim of sexual abuse, and we should be talking about that. We should be talking about how many men have been sexually abused. We should be talking about a lot more than just one scene in a programme. We should be talking about the programme as a whole and the messages, the underlying messages that are in the programme. Recovery does not follow a straight line. Recovery is not linear. It's not as simple as getting from A to B. It is a bendy road that a lot of us have to go down, and you see that throughout the series. You see Alex struggling to gain his independence back, and some days he's fine, some days he's not, and he says that, and that is very true. Some days I'm fine, some days I'm not. Recovery isn't linear, and that is what they made a point of in this series especially, and with Justin as well in his drug abuse. We need to be talking about how easy it was for him to get those drugs. We need to be talking about how easy it was for Tyler to get that gun. That's the topics we need to be talking about. We need to be talking about the fact that it's not as simple as this is what happens. It's so many different things that are adding up to that thing. It's not a black and white bit of paper saying this is what happens. It's loads of different things that are making that thing happen. Throughout the series, throughout both of the series, you see Hannah as that innocent character, and then in this next series you see a different side of the story, and you are seeing Hannah through filtered views from other people. We have never seen Hannah as a character on her own. We've always seen it through the tapes or through the Polaroids. We've seen it through her ghost. We've seen it through filtered minds, through filtered people. We don't know the true Hannah, and that's another kind of topic that maybe not a lot of people have touched on, is the fact that once that person's gone, people start talking about them, people start caring, and that's another thing that we kind of need to speak about, and it's the fact that we need to ensure that that help is there before it happens. That's very relevant to the school as well, and how they weren't there to help at the time. We need to be making people aware that these things do happen, and we need to put things in place before it gets too late for an individual. And I think that's kind of my views on the series, is the fact that people don't need to watch it if they don't feel comfortable watching it. They can have their opinion on it, that's fine. I agree with opinions from both sides. I'm not saying anyone's right or anyone's wrong, and the producers have said that as well. They have made it to trigger that conversation, to encourage that debate, and they know that not everyone's going to agree. People have said, I've lost people to suicide, I've known someone's been raped, I don't agree with the way they've portrayed it. That is fair enough, you might not, but they have used people who have experienced both those things, and they agree with it. It's not going to be a one-size-fits-all. It's not going to be tailored to everyone's own opinion and everyone's own story and everyone's own struggles. It's an example. They are not going to be able to safeguard everything and everyone. It's an entertainment programme, it's not educational. And yes, you may argue that they have the duty of care to educate people, but that isn't their primary aim. Their primary aim is to entertain and to shock and to encourage that conversation, and they have done. They've succeeded in that. It doesn't need to be positive conversation, it can just be conversation. As long as it's starting a debate and starting a conversation, they've done their job. And if you want education on that serious topics, go to the credible sources, go to the right sources, go to Samaritans, go to Mind, go to Childline, go to anyone that is a professional, and they will give you the right sources of education. They will give you the right sources to get help. And I think that's what's great in this second series especially, is that they have upped the trigger warnings. They have said, you are going to be seeing this, this and this. They've got their own website with like their own hotline, their care line. They've kind of safeguarded themselves as much as possible. They've put as many policies in place to ensure that their viewers are safe. And there is only so much they can do as a programme, as producers. They are not professionals. They have got professionals in to help them, but they themselves are not professionals. They've done all they can to protect people, and it's down to the individual and whether they feel they are well enough to watch it. They can't ensure that the people who are really unwell don't watch it. They can't control everyone, and it's knowing whether you're in the right place to watch it. And that's all I can really say. It's very difficult to articulate how I feel because there's so much to the story and there's so much to discuss, and there are so many different opinions flying around, and rightly so, and I agree with all opinions. I believe that everyone is entitled to their own opinion, and it's great that we can have this discussion and this debate, and I'm not going to close off anyone for having a different opinion. I'm going to listen to them and hold my hands up and say, fair enough, that is your opinion, that is what you think, that is fine. I'm not going to say that somebody who has struggled with the issues that were in the programme, I'm not going to say that they're not right because of this and this and this. If that's how they feel, that's how they feel, and we need to respect each other. We need to use this programme to start the conversation, to make sure we're there for people before it is too late. We need to make sure that the right safeguarding is in place to ensure that it doesn't become too late, and that's all I can say. It's a hard topic to talk about, and I'm no expert. I can only say so much. Yeah, it's difficult, and this is my view, and I'm not saying that people are wrong for having a different view. There is no right and wrong, it's how you feel, and I believe that the producers have gone through the necessary processes to ensure that they have got the right opinions from professionals and through real life cases. And I think if they had put maybe at the beginning that it was based on true cases, I don't know if the discussion would be the same, because that's essentially saying that those real cases were glorified or didn't happen. So I think, I don't know, it's you need to watch the behind the reasons and then reconsider your thoughts, and you might stay the same and you might think that it's not necessary to show certain scenes, and you might think, okay, yeah, fair enough, they did it to make us feel uncomfortable and to shock us. So yeah, what are your thoughts? Leave them in the comments below, tweet me, Instagram message me, just start that conversation. I really want to know everyone's thoughts because it's a topic that I talk about very openly, and I know a lot of people talk about it openly as well, and it's a topic that I'm really passionate about, and I believe this series was great in depicting different topics, and it had a lot of underlying issues that not everyone focused on, and I think that's maybe something that we need to focus on. We need to stop focusing on particular scenes, and we need to focus on the programme as a whole and the topics as a whole and the underlying issues that may be there that we are ignoring. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that this encourages conversation, and I'm not going to dismiss anyone for having a different opinion. I'm open to different opinions and I will accept everyone's opinions. But let's start this conversation and let's have this debate, and let's hopefully help other people before it becomes too late. Thank you for watching.